In 6 days, I will wake up in 1999 and relive the past 23 years. Part 2. Merry Christmas. I've posted the first part of the story twice, but I know what you're thinking. Why repost the same exact words? In part 1, you said you were trying something new. You said it was the first time you told your story on Reddit. Liar. I needed to do things exactly the same way. I'll explain that. For brevity, I've devised a clear reference system for each new iteration of this time loop. Obviously, there were thousands of iterations before these three. I-1, the first iteration. I initially posted it on Reddit. I-2, the second iteration. Mistakes were made. I-3, the third iteration. My current iteration. Something happened during I-1. I barely made it out of that iteration alive, but that's how I discovered I was on the right track. The glass-eyed man is pursuing me more aggressively than ever. I think he has grown weary of lurking. I-1, December 24th, 2022. Merry Christmas. The man on my doorstep was a frosty fellow, so I thought of him as a somber snowman. He had not come to offer glad tidings or a tuneful carol. I knew that before he even opened his mouth. I quaked in horror, dreading what he might have to say. "Who are you?" I timidly queried. "Somebody who can help," he responded. "I saw your post." My breathing flattened. I rooted myself to the ground, too shaken by the menacing statement to muster any kind of reply.
"Who is it, Jake?"
"The postman," I shouted. No matter how many lifetimes I live, I despise lying to Vanessa, but the truth is too complicated. There has only been one time that I ever explained my looping predicament to her. She didn't believe me. She thought I was mentally unwell. Since that iteration, I've always kept it a secret from her. "How did you find my address?" I eventually whispered. "Does that really matter?" he replied. "I had to see you. I traveled a long way. I think I can stop what's happening to you." "Not here," I blurted. "My family's inside." "Time is not on your side," he firmly told me. "I'm trapped in an endless loop, so I'd beg to differ." I facetiously quipped. "It's not endless," the stranger coldly replied. "You feel the thing with no eyes getting closer, don't you?" Before I could pry my trembling lips apart, Vanessa appeared behind me.
"Hello,"
she exuberantly said. The man weakly smiled. "Merry Christmas. I was just telling your husband that I must have foolishly left some of his parcels at the town office." "Right," I added. "In fact, I think I should come down to the delivery office."
"What have I told you about ordering presents late, Jake?"
Vanessa mumbled, rolling her eyes. "I know," I smiled. "Don't worry, I'll be quick." Away from Vanessa's prying ears, we decided to meet at the town hall, which was only around the corner. Still, the drive to our rendezvous point was unsettling. I followed the man's black sedan in my beat-up car. No matter which radio station I chose, however, I was horrified to find that the same song played. Stairway to Heaven. A once beautiful guitar passage now seemed to harbor a sinister secret. I turned off the radio, but the silence didn't make the journey any easier. The disused roads of the festive season felt haunted. Trundling behind the mystery man's sedan, I stole glances at icy alleyways on either side of the road. Shivering, I kept expecting to see him. I was too petrified to breathe, fearing that the glassy-eyed man might find me if I were to grasp for even the smallest pocket of air. We parked on a quiet residential street and went for a stroll. The sun was descending on the nearby town hall and the streets were starting to empty, but I was a little relieved to see at least some signs of life. Regardless, I knew that wouldn't keep the dark creature from me. "What makes time so special?" the man suddenly asked. I shrugged. "We all have it," the stranger answered. "Please just tell me what." I was interrupted by the jarring sound of nearby lampposts shattering. The night embraced us like a thin blanket. Shushing filled the air like a ghoulishly glacial wisp of wind. I've never been consumed by such existential terror, and this is coming from a man who has been alive for countless millennia. I've been welcomed dead with open arms, but that moment, above all others, truly haunted me. There are things worse than that, after all. Glassy spheres emerged from the blackness, hovering at the end of the pavement, as hauntingly garish eyeballs illuminated the void which engulfed it. A black shape moved towards us. "Find me after you reset," the internet stranger whispered. "Time is dwindling," but the man did not have the opportunity to finish his sentence. His face lost its color. Those glassy pinpricks were suddenly occupying the stranger's eye sockets. My mystery visitor howled in agony, and his flesh started to incinerate. There was no fire, but you wouldn't know that from the sight and smell of the man's disintegrating flesh. Blackened, bloody strips of skin peeled from his skeleton. His wail was that of a dying animal, desperately crying for a savior that it prayed would emerge from the darkness. Nothing came to save the man. Collapsing to his knees, his clothes shivering atop his melting flesh, the stranger's cries mutated into hoarse whispers. I saw his tongue wither in his open mouth. I think he tried to say something with his final breath, but all he could achieve was the most horrific moan. He was reduced to the blood-red meat beneath his skin. I suppose there were still gauntly eyes lodged in his skull. They weren't his eyes, though. Bereft of life, the man toppled to the ground from his burnt corpse. A spectre ascended. Those soulless pinpricks materialized in the shadowed darkness, gazing into my soul. The glassy-eyed man did not speak. I, on the other hand, could not speak. Suddenly there was a pain, unconceivable pain. I tentatively peered down to see a black limb, flesh composed of night itself, piercing in my left shoulder. Terrified beyond comprehension, I tried to bellow in pain, but my fragile body could scarcely manage a whimper. When I awoke, I was in my 13-year-old body. Of course, that would have been too easy. The man was right. Time. We all have it. Some of us have all of it. Before I could fully process my surroundings, I realized that my body was in agony. Blood was soaking into the bedding from the wound on my left shoulder. The wound was still there. Immortality was no longer a foregone conclusion. The glassy-eyed man could end me. Following a hospital visit with my bewildered and traumatized parents, I resolved to change. I would no longer accept this existence. I might not survive my next encounter with the glassy-eyed man, and who knows where he might send me if he were to kill me. After all, there might be an internal torture worse than my current one. I couldn't rid my mind of that petrifying thought. I'd spent years searching for the stranger who had knocked on my door, unable to wait for the formation of the r/no sleep subreddit in 2010. I decided to simply create it. I posted my experience on there. Nobody came to my house. In desperation, I posted on so many different websites, but I quickly realized my mistake. Surely I needed to repeat events in exactly the same way. I needed to submit the post on December 23rd, 2022. I did just that. There was no house visit. Perhaps I had already made too many changes to the timeline. Fortunately, I had also avoided the glassy-eyed man, but I found myself resetting to I3 on New Year's Eve 2022. I spent another 23 years waiting impatiently. Then, 2 days ago, I submitted the first part of the Reddit post. I worried that I might have worded it too differently to catch the eye of the internet stranger, but it worked. Today he visited me. I ushered him into the living room and prayed that my wife wouldn't overhear us. I heard the stranger through his persistent riddling. I wasn't going to let the glassy-eyed man consume him. "What's the significance of New Year's Eve 1999? I asked. "Do I need to go back and fix things?" The stranger shook his head, and he offered surprisingly a succinct explanation. "A time loop is a glitch in the universe," the man said. "The entity is here to end the glitch that caused the loop. and he believes that the glitch is you. Something else is trapping you. Think, Jake. What happened in 1999? And that's when I remembered. My body tensed and my heart filled with dread. Some boys were bullying a kid from our neighborhood. Pippa, a 10-year-old girl who never did anything to hurt anybody. The boys locked her in the old Hawthorne house, a derelict hellhole. I stood there telling myself I wasn't complicit in the crime I watched. Inaction is action, I suppose. While the fireworks distracted everybody at midnight, I slipped back into the house to rescue her, but she wasn't there. I assumed she had escaped and gone home. For the following week, however, missing posters popped up. Pippa was never found. Even more horrifyingly, neither were the other 3 boys who locked her in there. All 4 children vanished before the start of the new millennium. I told the stranger the story and he nodded. There are things in this world that defy reason. I've seen them. That's why I came to you. Pippa needs help, he said. I think she and those boys are still in that house. I don't think the Hawthorne place abides by the rules of time. The man whispered. What do you mean? I asked, shuddering. The stranger paused. Based on things I've experienced, I'd say it's an 11 shrine. An unholy place that ensnares peoples. At the turn of every new year, such places exist outside of space and time. Pippa is the force that keeps resetting your timeline, he continued. If you free her and the boys, you might be saved. It would return to the moment of their disappearance in 1999. That would be the original timeline, a parallel universe. When I returned to the house, I couldn't find the girl, I said. Why would it be any different if I were to revisit it? I told you, the stranger said. An 11 shrine exists beyond the construct of space and time. It creates a bridge to our world between 11 p.m. and midnight on New Year's Eve. How did you learn these things? I asked, suspiciously, although I was admittedly a little late. I don't think you're ready for that tale, he said. And even if I were to tell you what happened to me, could I not still lie? You just have to trust me, Jake. All right, I conceded. How do I need to prepare for New Year's Eve? When the man explained that I'd have to venture into the Hawthorne house at 11 p.m., I trembled in horror. I spent Christmas Eve watching my family with teary eyes. Can I avoid the flesh-searing limbs of the glassy-eyed man for 6 days? I keep seeing those lifeless eyeballs in the darkest services of my house. Even now, as I write, I could swear I just heard shushing from our wardrobe. Shh. Shh. End of part 2.